The following may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Canadian travelers stranded as Jamaica labs overwhelmed due to new COVID-19 testing requirements. Hundreds of vacationers hoping to return to Canada are now stranded in Jamaica after new rules requiring them to show proof of a negative PCR polymerase chain reaction test in order to enter the country came into effect on January 7th. All travelers are required to have this proof in hand at the time of boarding, regardless of citizenship. Failure to comply will mean an automatic denial of boarding by the air carrier operating the flight to Canada. Canadian citizen Denise Mendez is among those who are affected by the new policy after she decided to visit the island on December 30th to see her ailing mother. It was my mother's 70th birthday, and my mom has Parkinson. So me and my sister said, this is a milestone for her. And so we said, we kind of wanted to celebrate this, she said. Mendez, who is scheduled to leave Jamaica on a Caribbean Airlines flight on Sunday morning, said the new requirements were announced while she was in Jamaica. Since being informed, she tried to set an appointment with Microlabs Limited, but she said the next available date for testing, according to their website, is in February. I need to get back to work, so I am trying to do everything I can to get back to work, said the frustrated office manager. Mendez said she made contact with the Canadian consulate on Thursday. She was told that several other persons are experiencing a similar dilemma. According to Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dunstan Bryan, an estimated 2,000 Canadians are scheduled to return to Canada between now and next week. However, several of these persons have been having a difficult time finding an approved private lab to conduct the required tests due to the demand. Only 2 private labs have been approved by the Ministry of Health and Wellness to offer PCR testing for COVID-19 in Jamaica. They are Caribbean Genetics Carigen and Microlabs Limited. Bryan said with this latest development, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, and the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, have been putting in place options for persons to get tested privately. The private labs are making themselves ready to provide these services, he said. President of the PSOJ, Keith Duncan, said the changes in the Caribbean travel requirements were brought to the attention of the organization by the JHTA, and consultations were immediately held with the Medical Association of Jamaica, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the private laboratories. As this change was sudden and not all travelers were aware, and turnaround on these tests are 48 to 72 hours, travelers may need to make adjustments to their travel dates, Duncan advised. Currently, Microlabs Limited send their samples to Carigen for testing, thereby making this facility the only approved private lab doing PCR testing in the country. Chief analyst at Carigen, Compton Beecher, said they are overwhelmed. I can't give you numbers, but the demand has been really great, and what we've had to do is adjust our numbers a whole lot to accommodate a lot of the travelers, he told the Gleaner. What a lot of people don't realize is that throughout this whole crisis, there has just been a worldwide demand for the materials needed to do the testing. And so whereas we have the capacity in terms of instrumentation, in terms of how much samples we can do, the materials that are needed is what is trickling down to the different labs, he said. Beecher said that Carrigan has moved from processing between 150 and 170 samples per week to 6,000 samples this week. Microlabs Limited acts as a collection partner and collects the samples while they do the testing. It is a lot of stress, but we recognize that it rests on us basically to try and help out the tourists, and so we have been doing what we can, said Beecher. MAGA mob rioters smeared their own feces throughout the Capitol and left brown footprints in hallways. Some of the MAGA mob rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol smeared their own feces throughout the building and left brown footprints in their wake. Senator Chuck Schumer's staffers found out on Thursday that some rioters had defecated in the Capitol, a source told the New York Daily News. They are believed to have defecated in one of the bathrooms after breaching the Capitol before tracking their excrement in multiple hallways in the building. Brown footprints were found in parts of the Capitol hallways. It looked like they tracked it around, the source said. The feces left behind was just some of the extensive damage caused by the mob when they stormed the Capitol in a violent siege that has left 5 dead, including a Capitol police officer who is believed to have been hit over the head with a fire extinguisher during the riot. Harrowing images show shattered windows, graffiti-covered statues, and tear gas stains lining the walls of the historic building. Bags filled with zip ties, bullet holes, dirty footprints, and toppled furniture were seen scattered across the U.S. legislature. The Capitol sustained significant damage as hordes of rioters kicked down doors and climbed scaffolding to gain entry. Nancy Pelosi's office was also vandalized, with drawers pulled out and papers strewn across the floor. Multiple protesters uploaded photos to social media of them mockingly posing for selfies at her desk. The rampage that has shocked the world and left the country on edge forced the resignations of 3 top Capitol security officials over the failure to stop the breach. It led lawmakers to demand a review of operations and an FBI briefing over what they called a terrorist attack. It is also prompting a broader reckoning over Trump's tenure in office and what comes next for a torn nation. Protesters were urged by Trump during a rally near the White House to head to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers were scheduled to confirm Biden's presidential victory. The mob swiftly broke through police barriers, smashed windows, and paraded through the halls, sending lawmakers into hiding. One protester, U.S. Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt, was shot to death by Capitol Police, and there were dozens of arrests. 3 other Trump supporters died after medical emergencies related to the breach. Capitol Police Officer Brian D. Sidnick later died from injuries he suffered during the ordeal. The Capitol Police said in a statement that Sidnick was fatally injured while physically engaging with protesters. It is believed a protester hit him over the head with a fire extinguisher. Sidnick, like those in the mob, was a Trump supporter, according to his social media pages. Teenager publicly shames mom for participating in Capitol riot and getting punched in the face by cop. Helena Duke, 18, on Thursday retweeted a video showing her mother, Therese Duke, with blood streaming down her face after being struck between the eyes by a female uniformed officer. Duke added a caption that read, "Hi, Mom. Remember the time you told me I shouldn't go to the BLM protests because they could get violent? Is this you?" She said that about 3 years ago her mother had been a Democrat, but a year into Trump's presidency she became brainwashed by the Make America Great Again movement. In a follow-up tweet, Helena shared a screenshot of the bloodied pro-Donald Trump protester alongside a photo showing a woman she identified as her mother, writing, "For those who don't believe it's my mother." The video of the violent confrontation, which as of Friday evening has been viewed more than 9.5 million times, shows Therese trying to snatch a cell phone from the hands of a black cop. The uniformed woman immediately wheeled around and jabbed the Trump supporter in the face with her fist. The officer is then shoved toward a crowd of cops before a melee broke out between the two sides and pepper spray was deployed. Another clip showed a bleeding Therese being asked who hit her, to which she replied, "That girl punched me in the face, that black girl." Helena later retweeted the video, writing, "Mom, I think you mean to say that powerful black woman punched you for harassment." She claims that her mom went to Washington, D.C. after telling family she was taking a relative to an out-of-town doctor. Helena told the New York Post that she only learned that her mother was taking part in the violent revolt inspired by Trump's speech calling on his supporters to march on the Capitol during Joe Biden's victory certification on Wednesday after seeing videos online. According to the teen, her mother told her she was going out of town for 3 days to drive her on to a medical facility to undergo a procedure. She didn't give me any more information about it. She was very vague. When I found out about the Capitol being stormed, I looked at her location sharing and it had been off for 2 days, so I assumed in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, she might actually be there, Duke told the Post. And then the next day, my cousin shared a video of her getting punched in the face by police after harassing them. Helena said initially she had misgivings about publicly shaming her mother, but ultimately she decided to do it because of her mother's past conduct, including kicking the daughter out of the house for attending Black Lives Matter protests last year. At first, I was kind of uneasy about it, but I think it was definitely so hypocritical of her to end up kicking me out of the house for going to peaceful protests because she assumed they'd be violent, and then end up going to this, which was obviously a very violent attack on the Capitol, and end up harassing a cop, she said. Her actions were appalling, and I did not think she could possibly stoop this low, Helena told Newsweek. Seeing her harass a black woman and attending a violent event is very hypocritical of her. Helena said that her aunt and uncle also took part in the unrest in Washington, D.C. A LinkedIn page for a Therese Duke from Massachusetts lists her employer as UMass Memorial Healthcare for the past 16 years. On Friday, the nation's third-largest healthcare provider released a statement saying it was investigating allegations that one employee or more may have taken part in the D.C. riots. "We strongly condemn such behavior if true," the statement read in part. Miami doctor dies weeks after getting a COVID-19 vaccine. 2 weeks after getting a first dose of a Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, a 56-year-old doctor in South Florida died this week, possibly the nation's first death linked to the vaccine. Health officials from Florida and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are investigating what role, if any, the vaccine played in the death of Dr. Gregory Michael, a Miami Beach obstetrician who his family says was in otherwise good health. Michael received his first dose of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine on December 18 at Mount Sinai Medical Center, according to a Facebook post from his wife Heidi Neckelman. 3 days later, small spots began to appear on his feet and hands, and he went to the emergency room at Mount Sinai, where he worked in private practice for 15 years, according to his personal website. His blood count was far below normal ranges, according to Neckelman, and he was admitted to the intensive care unit. For 2 weeks, she said, doctors tried to raise Michael's platelet count. Experts from all over the country were involved in his care, she wrote. No matter what they did, the platelets count refused to go up. She wrote that Michael was conscious and energetic through the process, but just days before the last resort surgery, he suffered a stroke and died. Neckelman did not respond to calls and emails Thursday seeking comment. Darren Caprara, Director of Operations at the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office, said Michael died sometime between the night of January 3rd and the early morning of January 4th. Caprara completed an autopsy by January 5th, but it is too early to make any conclusions, he said. Michael's samples have been sent to experts at the CDC for testing. Caprara also will work with the Florida Department of Health. Nothing has been finalized, he said. Everything is still pending. Michael's death is the first that the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office has investigated where a COVID-19 vaccine is suspected to have played a role, Caprara said. A spokesman for the CDC said the agency is investigating only one death in which a vaccine is suspected to have played a role. He would not confirm that Michael's death is the case under investigation. In a statement to the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, a spokesman for Pfizer said the company is aware of Michael's death and said it was a highly unusual clinical case. The spokesman said the company is investigating but does not believe there is any direct connection to the vaccine at this time. It is important to note that serious adverse events, including deaths that are unrelated to the vaccine, are unfortunately likely to occur at a similar rate as they would in the general population, he said. The CDC spokesman said investigators will evaluate the situation as more information becomes available and provide timely updates on what is known and any necessary action. He said that more than 5 million people have received COVID-19 vaccines in the U.S., and the CDC and Food and Drug Administration are monitoring data related to vaccine safety. A report released by the CDC on Wednesday analyzed reactions to the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Of the nearly 2 million doses given out by December 23rd, only 4,393 adverse events were reported, according to the report. A total of 175 cases were reviewed for the possibility of a severe allergic reaction that can be life-threatening and does occur rarely after vaccination, according to the report. 21 cases of the allergic reaction were found, including 17 in people with a documented history of allergies. The report concluded that a severe allergic reaction to the Pfizer vaccine appears to be rare, but cautioned that the conclusion is being made based on limited data. Caprara said it is too early to tell what effect the vaccine may have had on Michael, but one thing that seems to be clear is that the doctor was in good health before his death. In her Facebook post, Neckelman said Michael was very healthy and had spent the pandemic working tirelessly to deliver hundreds of babies. She said he was a COVID-19 vaccine advocate, but Neckelman suggested that her husband's death has caused her to question the vaccine and its possible side effects. I believe that people should be aware that there are side effects, she wrote. In this case, destroyed a beautiful life, a perfect family. She wrote that it is important that Michael's death be looked at closely. Do not let his death be in vain.